Hi everybody, my name is Zoe and I'm here to teach you about music improvisation. Over the next 3 sessions, we will learn how to make up music on the spot, inspired by the things around us at home. Personally, improvisation is one of my favorite things to do. I play the flute and the piano, but sometimes I don't want to play music that somebody else wrote for me. And sometimes I don't even want to use my musical instruments to play music. So that's when I'll use improvisation so that I can make music that I came up with and express myself without having to think about a bunch of notes and rules. By the end of this first session, you will be ready to play music all by yourself, right there in your home. And you're not going to need anything but your mind and your body. So the first question I'm going to ask you today sounds a little bit silly, but I bet that you'll find it kind of tricky to answer. I want you to see if you can confidently answer, what is music? Sure, it seems easy at first. We listen to music all the time. It's those songs you hear on the radio when you're heading to school. It's that Hamilton soundtrack that you've memorized all the words to. And it might be that piece you're learning for music class at school or after school. But I want you to imagine for a second that an alien spaceship has just landed on Earth, and the aliens have asked you to explain to them what music is. How would you define it? Could you be specific? What words would you use? So it turns out a bunch of adults have been trying to answer what is music for a long time. And we're not entirely sure what is and what isn't music. For instance, would you say that birdsong is music? And what about a car alarm? Is it music? What about this funny piece? So do you think that that's music? And no, your speakers aren't broken. That piece I just showed you is a piece by John Cage called 4 minutes and 33 seconds. And it really is 4 minutes and 33 seconds of no piano playing. He doesn't play the notes on the piano, a single time for the entire performance. Do you think that's music? I'll bet that you all had different answers on whether birdsong, car alarms, and 4.5 minutes of silence are music or not. And that's okay. That's part of what makes music so interesting. So now that we've thought a little bit about what is and what isn't music, I want to introduce you to music improvisation, which we call improv for short. Improv is the act of making immediate music, which just means that you're coming up with it right there on the spot, rather than thinking of it or maybe even writing it down beforehand. Musicians all over the world practice music improvisation, but I'm going to show you just a few examples today. This first example is the amazing bass player, Esperanza.
Virtuoso.
Jazz improvisation is incredible, and it sounds so good. But there are certain rules about how to do it so that it sounds really beautiful and not entirely random. Jazz musicians study for a long time to learn which notes to choose from and which notes to leave out. And that's what makes it sound so incredibly interesting. But another type of improvisation is called free improvisation, where there are no rules to follow, and you can just make up what you think would sound good. Here's an example of free improv by pianist Chris Davis and guitarist Julian Lage. And it's nice and relaxing. Finally, I want to show you one more example of improvisation that was in fact performed and recorded during the coronavirus quarantine. This is also a type of improv that has rules to follow, like the jazz example with Esperanza Spalding. But these aren't rules that you need to study or take lessons or go to music school. In fact, in this next video, you're going to see what the rules of this song are.
Just listen. We begin by taking a deep breath and letting it all the way out with an air sound. And next, we are listening with our mind's ear for a tone. On the next breath, using any vowel sound, we're singing the tone that you have silently perceived on one long, comfortable breath. Then we listen to the whole field of sound the group is making. Selecting a voice from a distance from you, you tune to that as exactly as possible to the tone you are hearing from that voice. Then we listen again to the whole field of sound, and we contribute by singing a new tone that no one else is singing. Then we continue by listening, then singing a tone of your own, or tuning to the tone of another voice alternately. You can try to find as many new and different voices as you like. So I'm going to be listening, and Pauline will be listening, and letting it all the way out with an air.
Could you hear the singing? So you don't need to study a lot to understand the rules of that improvisation piece. It says that you're either going to be listening, singing with somebody else, or singing your own solo note that nobody else has. And that piece was recorded over Zoom during quarantine, showing how we can be improvising even from our own home. Now that we have a better idea of what improvisation or improv is and what different kinds of improv are out there, it's time to make up some of our own music. Today, we're going to use our bodies as our instruments. So let's quickly learn how to play our instrument. Everybody has a different body and can make different sounds with their body. So your instrument will be nothing like my instrument, will be nothing like your friend's instrument. How many different sounds can you make with your body? Well, some of us use our voices to make sound. We talk, we sing, we hum, we whistle, or we can make lots of other sounds with our mouth. Some people use their hands to clap, or to drum on our legs, or on the ground, or on a tabletop, or our chests, or our bellies. And they're all different sounds. We can rub our hands together to make a rustling sound. Maybe we can snap our fingers. We could stomp our feet. I bet you can even come up with sounds that I haven't even thought of. Once you've come up with a few different sounds, I want you to pick one. Pick your favorite sound. We're going to see how many different ways we can manipulate and change that one sound. I'm going to pick clapping my hands for my sound. How many different ways can I clap my hands? Well, there's so many little things that I could change. I could change the dynamics, which means how loudly or how quietly I clap. I'm going to start quietly and get louder and louder. I can change the rhythm of my clapping, which would make up different patterns. I could change the tempo, which means the speed of my clapping. I could start very slow and get faster. I could change the articulation to make either nice long sounds or quick short sounds. And I could see if I could change the timbre or the type of sound that I make, such as clapping with my palms or clapping with the back of my hands. It's a very different sound. Can you come up with a bunch of different ways to make just one sound with your body? So now that we've learned how to play our instrument, it's time to do some improv and make some music. My favorite way to improvise is to tell a story. So I want you to think of a story, and it could be one from your life, or one you read in a book, or saw on TV or in a movie, or any story that you might want to make up. And here's the story I'm going to tell with my music. When I was 10 years old, I was running on a track, getting some good exercise. And I could hear all sorts of animals while I ran, such as birds singing in the trees and insects rustling on the ground. But in the distance, I saw a storm starting to roll in. The birds stopped singing, and the insects stopped rustling as they all started to look for shelter. I too stopped running for a moment and looked up at the sky. The first rain droplet fell and hit me right in the eye. And then the next fell. And the next, and the next, and the next, and the next thing I knew, it was a big old thunderstorm. It was pouring and thundering, and I was running for color. It was just wild. But I made it indoors, and I slammed the door closed behind me. And I was able to take a deep breath and laugh at how soaked I was. The thunderstorm passed, the sun came out, and the birds began to sing again. The end. Did you notice how that story started out with something more calm, then got wilder and wilder until madness ensued, and then it calms down again? That's how a lot of improvisation works. And you'll hear that in some of the examples in session 2 and 3 as well. Things might start very calmly and quietly, but they quickly get pretty wild. And then at the end, they calm down again, just like a good story does. So if I'm going to tell my running story with music, I'm going to start by thinking about what sounds I might use for different things that happen in the story. For my running, I want to sound like I'm stomping my feet. The bird song, bet you can think of something. I'd probably whistle. The insect rustling could be my palms rubbing together. Then there's going to be a moment of silence when I look up and realize that the storm is coming. Then the storm will start quiet, but get louder and louder and louder, and it's definitely going to get very loud and chaotic when I'm running for safety. Then I think there needs to be a big, loud sound when I slam the door closed. Then silence. Then I think we'll hear a bird start to sing again, and that's how we'll know the storm is over. So are you ready to hear my improvisation, telling my story? Let me give it a try. And it could be something super quick like that. Could you tell what was happening in the story? And even if you couldn't, that's okay. The story is just something to inspire us to try different kinds of sounds. I just made music up for you right here on the spot, using nothing but my mind and my body as my instrument. And you can do this too, right now, and any time that you might feel like telling a story, making some music, and getting some energy out. So that's it for today. In part 2, we're going to talk more about expanding our musical instruments by using things we find around us in the house, such as pots and pans from the kitchen, maybe a jar of pennies, some outdoor stones, whatever else you might find. So goodbye for now, and I'll see you in part 2. Bye-bye.